Hello, good evening, good morning, everybody, wherever you are. We already figured out there is quite an international audience here, as usual. I'm Silke, accredited Kanban trainer from New Zealand, and I founded and run the Kanban New Zealand meetup. Daniel Pluk, who's normally running the Kanban meetups in Sydney and Melbourne, cannot make it, unfortunately, today. He's sick. So I'm talking for him as well. And on his behalf, welcome everybody into today's topic, how to turn your daily meetings into outcome-driven events. Our guest today is Sonya Siderova, and she is CTO from Nave, and for sure the founder of Nave. And Nave is a data tool, metrics tool that you can plug in with pretty much all tools that you're using at the moment, Jira, Asana, all sorts of tools if you want to have really, really, really good metrics. But Sonya can tell you much more about that. And I think with this, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you so much, Silke. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Good evening, good morning from Belgium. It's 7 a.m. here, so there is quite a big difference. I'm super happy to see such a wonderful international audience. My name is Sonya. I'm the founder and CEO of Nave. And as Silke said, Nave is a Kanban analytics suite. And the main goal behind our tool is to help managers make reliable, data-driven decisions and consistently deliver on your commitments, all while managing happy, motivated, and engaged teams. And today's presentation will be all about one of my most favorite topics, how to turn your daily meetings into outcome-driven events, which will ultimately help you head your improvement efforts in the right direction. So here is what I want to start with. For some people, the daily call is a tool for collaborative productivity. For others, though, it's yet another meeting that takes time away from what they really should be working on. So, what makes the difference between an effective daily meeting and one that just wastes your time? This specific presentation will focus on the most strategic approach to getting the most out of your daily calls. I'll show you what tools to use and how to use them to keep your meetings streamlined, effective, and focused on delivering results. So grab a notebook, a pen and paper if you don't already have something to take notes with, and I promise you, by the end of our session, you'll have lots of new ideas, you'll be ready to take action, and you will understand why adopting this approach is so integral in your business agility journey. All right, let's get started. Back in the day, it was almost traditional to spend our daily calls asking all the people on the team what they did yesterday and what they're doing today. Here is the paradox. Managing people does not lead to improvements in your delivery performance. And this is due to one simple reason. Time spent at a desk doesn't necessarily translate into productive time. Productivity should first and foremost be assessed in terms of achievements and outcomes, rather than the number of work hours logged on your time tracking system. Let me tell you a story. Tony was one of the backend developers in the integration department of a company that I was working for back in the day. And he was a very experienced programmer. He was also a great team player who was really, really passionate about coming up with the most feasible options. However, he could never completely cooperate with the rules of the traditional workplace. The Monday to Friday 9 to 5 grind, it wasn't for him. He couldn't fit in it. And I'll never forget the last time that he was called out for being late at work. And he was showing up one morning. It was around 9:15 or something. And he was casually strolling in with his favorite hot cappuccino and chocolate croissant. And it was a tradition of his to fully enjoy his breakfast before diving into the lines of source code. So this specific morning was different. It was his boss who was standing beside his desk, and he was like tapping his watch in disapproval. He said something like, "Tony, this is absolutely unacceptable. I can't remember the last time you were here before 9. And Tony wasn't really the kind of guy who would allow himself to be sacrificed at the altar of office discipline, especially if the rule didn't make any sense to him. So he said something like, "Well, good morning to you too, sir. Did I miss anything?" And of course, he knew that he hadn't. He was still connected to his work in a dozen different ways. He had checked his calendar the night before, he had been in his emails all morning, and all internal messaging notifications were turned on. If anyone wanted to get in touch, they would have already done so. At this moment, his boss called him out in front of the entire department. What he said was, "Tony, the working day started 15 minutes ago. You being late is bad for morale. It looks like you aren't pulling your weight out here." Ouch. That one really hurt. The assumption that he wasn't producing just because he wasn't physically stuck on his desk was just too much for his pride. The next day, Tony filed his resignation. And Tony's boss mistakenly assumed that keeping everyone in their working places would ultimately bring success to his team. What he didn't realize was that managing people leads to a dead end. Nowadays, with our new way of working, how we work and why we work is fundamentally out of sync with the expectations of the traditional workplace. The old command and control mindset simply does not work anymore. Instead, there is a need to modify the traditional management strategies and approaches in order to deliver in a consistent, predictable manner. So why do we keep managing people? Do we believe that monitoring and diligently filling every second of our workers' time is the best way to make the most of our investment? And even though managers are often obsessed with optimizing an individual's time, this practice actually inhibits the end goal of optimizing our overall delivery speed. And even though the famous 3 questions don't take place in our daily calls that often anymore, recently we've seen a new trend start evolving, which pretty much reverts us right back to our old bad behavior. What I'm observing over and over again is that during their daily calls, teams go through all the work items on the board and report their status. What's the problem with this approach? Let's dig deeper here. Assuming that everyone on the team is working on something, which is usually the case, what is essentially happening here is that you're asking each and every person on the team what they are currently doing. Now, the focus has moved back to managing people, and it's being taken away from understanding the problems that are hindering your performance. When we perceive our daily calls as a status update meeting and ask people what the status of their work is every day, the interfering spark of micromanagement starts to build, slowly but surely. The team's engagement and motivation levels go down, and with it, the daily call starts to feel like another thing that's distracting people from doing their work. And that's not all. Your meetings are probably one of the most expensive overhead costs within your organization. Imagine you manage a team of 10 people and they have about, let's say, 15 work items in progress. With this specific setup, the call would easily take about 30 minutes to go through each of them and have everyone give their update. This is a total of 5 man-hours, which could otherwise be spent delivering results. And that's only if you moderate the meeting well. Usually, it takes even longer. So, does it really make sense to spend everyone's time reporting their status? Now, you might be wondering, all right, Sonya, but if the team doesn't give an update on our daily calls, how do we know the status of the work? This is exactly what your Kanban board is about. The sole purpose of your board is to provide an overview of the status of the work at any one time. As such, your Kanban board should be the single source of truth, and it should represent reality. All the work the team is doing should be visualized on the board. Your decisions affect your predictability, so you have to ensure you make informed ones. The work items need to be in their actual state. If you have to suspend the work, the cards should be marked as blocked. The urgent items need to have their own class of service, so the team knows how to handle them on their own. If you observe that your board is not up to date, open up the question to the team, emphasizing the importance of visualizing the work properly. That's how you cut out the time that everyone spends explaining what they're currently doing during your meetings. This is the first step to making your daily calls streamlined and effective. Now, your daily meeting is not a status update meeting. The goal of your daily meeting is to navigate the flow of work. What does this mean? You have to move your focus from the workers to the work itself. It means that your focus should be on managing any blockers, bottlenecks, or urgent requests that are slowing you down. It also means that you only talk about the items that are prevented from moving further in your workflows. How can you do that? There is a tool at your disposal that will enable you to get there. And this tool is called the aging chart. And this is what the aging chart at Nave looks like. This chart enables you to track your current tasks in progress. Essentially, it uses the exact same visual format as your Kanban board, with each column representing a state in your workflow. The aging chart shows how many days a task has already spent in progress. And the colored zones here on the chart are called health zones, and they represent a timeline. They visualize the amount of time that your completed work items have spent in progress as the work was moving through each process state. So the dark green zone here at the bottom represents the timeline at which 30% of your completed work moves through the workflow. Then the light green zone visualizes the timeline of 50% of your previous work. The yellow corresponds to 70%, the orange to 85%, and the light red zone indicates the amount of time that 95% of your completed items took to be delivered. So if your dots, your tasks, are positioned above the light red zone, this means that your current tasks are spending more time in the process than 95% of your previously finished tasks. So let's look into this example. So here in the yellow zone, in the code review states, the code review state ends to the 9th day. What this means is that by this point, 70% of our completed items spent up to 9 days in the workflow. And we can see that there is an item here in code review that's pointing to 3 days. It is still in the yellow zone. This tells us that this specific item has taken less time so far than 70% of our previous work. So it's moving smoothly, it's moving predictably within our expectations. Now, let's look into this item that's on the top of the testing state. It is positioned on the border between the green and the yellow zone, which means that it has taken more time than 50% of our work in that process state. So if your dots go into the red zone at any point along the workflow, this means that they're taking significantly longer than your previous work items and you are going off track. And the dotted lines that you're seeing here, the lines stretching across the chart, we call them percentile lines. Both the percentiles and the health zones represent the exact same thing. The only difference is that the percentiles show you how much time your previous items spent in the workflow overall, while the health zones show that exact same information, but split by process state. That's why you can see that the percentile lines always line up to where the health zones end. Now, let's look into another example. This is the aging chart of a development team of 3 people. Once again, the red zone represents the time 95% of your completed work items needed to move to the next step. For this team, the only focus of the daily meeting is discussing the 2 items in the red zone, which have taken much longer than 95% of everything else that has been finished so far. And the conversation should not be about what's taking so long. Do not ask what's taking so long. Instead, ask, is there anything I or anyone else in the team can do to make sure we enable the work to move further? Carefully select your language here, as this decision could either make or break one's motivation. And using this approach, you not only keep a finger on the pulse of the work and make sure you act quickly if any impediments arise along the way, but you also enable a supportive environment in which you can have the right conversation at the right time. Why is that important? There are plenty of reasons causing tasks to get stuck in your workflow. Internal and external blockers, neglected maintenance tasks, unclear requirements, delayed business feedback. These are just a handful of causes behind delayed work in progress. Leaving incomplete tasks in the workflow for too long drastically increases your delivery time overall. It carries a risk of reduced forecasting accuracy, and ineffective forecasting will hinder your ability to predict your delivery times for both single work items and entire projects. It compromises your data. It makes your data irrelevant. So this concept of flow debt makes your system unstable and unpredictable. Flow debt is when the delivery time of a task in progress is reduced by stealing time from other tasks in progress. Team members preferentially work on this task at the expense of others in the process. Any shift in priorities, deviation in the management focus, or other interruption in the middle of the process can generate flow debt. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. As with financial debt, the short-term benefits of accumulating flow debt can be worth in the long-run costs associated with it. Focusing all team efforts on resolving an emergency may be the best course of action. In these cases, it is essential to understand how buildups of flow debt affect your whole process. You want to have that information. You want to make an informed decision. The delay of other work items, though, is the less costly effect. What's more crucial here is that the flow debt has a negative impact on the predictability of your entire delivery system and makes your forecast less accurate. And these are all deeply adverse effects, and the following question arises. How do you avoid work in progress from being delayed? Simple yet effective method is to introduce a new policy where a task becomes a higher priority once it crosses the 70th percentile. Essentially, what you're saying is 70% of our tasks have taken less than this one to complete. Let's focus on it in order to avoid delays. Another useful practice is to introduce an explicit process policy of pulling the tasks across the process in the same order they arrive in. In other words, the oldest task should be the first to leave the process. Here at Nave, we've managed to reduce our delivery times by 250%, adopting this simple strategy. And by implementing these practices, you're effectively preventing your work in progress from aging artificially. Now, during your daily calls, apart from going through all the aging work on the aging chart, talk about the urgent work you're handling. Are there any expedites in the system? Go through any blocked work that's staying and waiting in your process. Identify what's causing the work to get stuck and take action. The outcome of the meeting must be to come up with a concise action plan. You should always have an outcome. Do not finish your meeting without an outcome. For example, if a work item is blocked, what needs to happen to unblock it? And who is accountable for that action? If there is aging work waiting to be handled, who will start working on it? Write down a few bullet points. Keep it to a maximum of 3 so you can keep the entire team focused on the most pressing issues that are slowing you down. The next day, start the meeting by following up with the action plan. Go through the bullet points and see what has been done. Then go back to the aging chart and evaluate your current work in progress. Repeat that process on a daily basis. This approach will turn your daily meetings into short, outcome-driven, actionable calls that enable you to make progress and see the results of your improvement efforts. It turns these calls into continuous improvement mechanism. And if you don't have aging work, all of your dots are in the green zone or in the yellow zone, and they're moving predictably in the workflow. If you don't have blocked work, and if you don't have any challenges that the team really wants to talk about, it's a great time to end the call. Here at Nave, we spend anything between 3 and 8 minutes with the 15 members in our team. 3 to 8 minutes, right? So keep it focused. Only talk about the work that's prevented to move smoothly through the process. Now, here is your action item. If you haven't tried Nave just yet, go to getnave.com/KNZ and connect it to your management platform. We provide integrations with the most popular tools on the market. It's Jira, Trello, as well as Asana and Azure DevOps. We also provide the version where you can upload your data using CSV or JSON files for those of you who use Jira Server and their instances are not publicly available. That option is quite suitable as well in case you support strict security policies and you need to anonymize your data. You can also use our API to automate the process. Getnave.com /KNZ. This link will enable a 30-day free trial for you. No CC required, no obligations. Go ahead and check this out right away. It will only take a few clicks to create your dashboard and analyze your data. I want you to incorporate the aging chart in your daily calls as early as tomorrow morning. This simple action only will lead to significant improvements. And I want to end this presentation with this. Start from a place of 100% trust. Stop managing the workers and start managing the flow of work. Your teams have their explicit policies. They have their goals. They have their deadlines, and assume by default that they're here for the right reason. My sole responsibility is to manage the work effectively and build a decision-making framework that suits the needs of my business. The explicit policies that come with the framework enable self-managed teams who have the autonomy to make decisions on their own. I encourage active leadership at all levels, which ultimately helps us continuously improve our decision-making processes. Everyone knows what to do in every scenario, especially in emergency situations. This approach helps us deliver results to our customers in a consistent, predictable manner. It doesn't matter whether my teammates are at their desks from 9 to 5. It doesn't matter whether they work from the office, from home, or in Tenerife in their shorts. All I care about is sustaining the predictability of our delivery system. My focus is on the workflow, resolving bottlenecks, blockers, or dependencies along the way, and enabling my team to do what I've hired them to do. It's not the amount of time we work that makes our customers stay with us. It's the level of predictability we provide to them. As long as the work is getting done on time and to a high degree of quality, my team have achieved their goals. There is no need to track hours or request status reports during the daily meetings. I believe in promoting a supportive organizational culture. I believe that people want to show up to a workplace that feels more like a community, a workplace where they can be among friends, where they can bring their whole selves. I don't want to manage my people. I want to inspire them. I believe that you, as a leader, have to champion your team no matter what. They need to know that they're working with somebody that has their back. And that's the strongest motivational booster out there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sonya. Awesome. So there is a question in the chat, and it's from Rob. And if anybody else has questions, you can shout out afterwards or just put them in the chat as well. If we use the trial connection, I presume the data will flow through the Nave servers. Can you share the details on that, e.g. how secure is that? I would need to have that validated by my organization before connecting.
Yes, absolutely. So indeed, there is a part of the data that's being fetched from your instance, and it's synchronized with our servers. However, it's a very limited amount of data. We're really interested in timestamps and IDs. We're going to also fetch, let's say, the names of your cards, but we're not going to look into any comments or attachments or anything like this. At Nave, there is an option to anonymize your data, meaning that we can only work with IDs and timestamps without fetching anything else. So that's an option, but I know where that's coming from. I mean, we're working with really big insurance companies, banks, and telecommunication providers, and going through security assessment is pretty much something that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. We have a set of documentation that I can send to you, so you can actually start your security assessment. This is something that we're taking really seriously because the data, your data, should be safe. Like, this is #1 priority for us. please send me a note, contact me in LinkedIn, send me a note. I'm going to give you all the details in there. And if you just want to get started right away, because I know that stuff like that is taking time, go and check our CSV file integration. We have a sample CSV that you can modify for your own needs, like just put some sample data in there, upload it to Nave and see how it works. You can also use your own data, but let's say remove the names of the cards or change them with some other names. Just go ahead and try it out, because taking action is what will have you make progress. Like, don't get stuck with the process of security assessment. Make sure that try it out, even if it's like a sample data. Apart from that, send me a note and I'll give you all the details that your security team may need to move forward. And by the way, guys, feel free to jump in on camera and have the conversation.
Unfortunately, Cam isn't here. I had lunch with him today and he really wanted to come. But he has actually gone through the whole process with Internet NZ a few years back, and it worked quite well, or very well. Andreas is asking, is the data stored in Europe?
Yes, we're a European provider. We are fully GDPR compliant, and our servers are based in Western Europe, in Belgium. Yes.
Cool. Any more questions? If you like, also about the topic, any questions you like?
Don't be shy. Now it's your chance. And by the way, guys, if there is anything else that comes up along the way, I'm on LinkedIn. Just go for Sonya Siderova or Nave, and you're going to find me there. Let's connect and let's continue the conversation. I would love to hear more about your stories, your use cases, the challenges that you're trying to resolve. It's always interesting to hear more about what are the problems that you're dealing with. And just go and try, just try Nave if you haven't started. Make sure that you use that link that I shared, getnave.com/KNZ, because if you don't use it, you would enable only 14-day free trial, which is the default that we provide. With that specific link, it will go to 30 days. So make sure that you use that specific link to have a little bit more time to evaluate it. And by all means, integrate it with your daily meetings. Nave is very powerful tool. You can do so many things with it, but my best recommendation is start from there. Like, if you're just getting started, and if you haven't used Kanban analytics, or you're not used with the practice of really looking into the work rather than the workers, like if you're just transitioning or you're just getting started, my advice always is forget about Monte Carlo, CFD, and all of the rest of the charts. Flow efficiency, don't pay attention to that stuff. It's too early. If you're just getting started, the only thing I want you to do is to look into the age of your work. And the aging chart is where you do that. This is where you manage your work in progress, because the way you manage the work in the aging chart is affecting everything else. Like, if you track your delivery times, cycle times, lead times, if you track how much work you deliver, throughput, trends, and all of that stuff, flow efficiency, due date performance, all of these metrics are a result of how effectively you manage your work in progress. So if you're getting started, make sure that you start with the age of the work and with the aging chart. This is my best advice for you.
By the way, if anybody is interested and needs or would like to hook up with someone who's using Nave in New Zealand, I'm happy to get that connection going. They are usually pretty welcoming and just having a chat and how it works for them. And also, we actually had a presentation, I think at the end of 2020, of Internet NZ that Cam has run, where he shows their progress over a year and also using Nave. Oh, look, here he is.
Here he is. Right on time.
Hey, Cam, I've just been talking about you. The talk's just over. Yeah, I said hello from you, and I said that you've been using Nave.
Good.
Hey, Cam, since we already have you here, can you share a few words about your experience? How are things going on your side?
One sec. Trying to work out what's going on with my mute. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. There we go. I was wondering why I couldn't unmute. Sorry, what was that question again, Sonya?
We were talking about your experience with Nave. It all started with the security that you guys we went through a couple of years ago. And
that's right.
Yeah, so can you share quickly about that? I think we will love to hear more of that story.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, Cam here. So yeah, when I was at Internet New Zealand was when I first sort of picked up Nave, and obviously bringing any new tool into the enterprise, you need to kind of, do it with a sense of, knowing what we're doing. And so the thing that was going to get it across the line with our chief security officer, obviously, was getting a little bit more intel into the security practices under the hood as to what's sort of how things are managed, what's the data retention policies are like, and all of that good stuff. So I think, Sonya, we backed and forth a little bit, didn't we, just to sort of work out what the right information was. And yeah, definitely appreciate being very upfront about everything, and open to share that sort of information, because that's the thing that really got it across the line. And I think we ended up pulling it together in a paper to go to our SLT to get it across the line, and yeah, no issues there. So we ended up adopting it, using it across multiple teams, and then pretty much every place I jump to next, I'm always, the first thing I do is like, what tracking tool have you got? Does it work with Nave? And I've literally just done that again, like this week. I've just fired up another Nave account at my new place. So expect to be hearing from me, Sonya.
It's great to hear from you, Tim, really. So
yeah.
What tool are you using there?
What was that? Sorry, Suka?
Sorry, what tool are you using there?
We're on Jira.
All right.
Yeah. And I think previously we had been using Asana, which I think is one of the integrations as well. And I think from memory, Suka, as well, you had a client that was looking to get it on Teams as well, I believe, or Azure DevOps, sorry. And I think that security information package that we put together with Sonya's help was helpful to get that across the line as well. So yeah, really handy to have that information.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry I missed the talk. I literally just got home and walked through the door, and it's like, I need to go and dial in. So, and it looks like I've just come in the tail end. Although, if you do mention my name 3 times, I pop up. So,
well, you can watch the recording.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
I had one question.
Oh, cool.
Sonya, you mentioned that we can start using this tool as early as tomorrow. So I've started using Nave, and we're not very happy with our aging chart. There are quite a few cards in the deep red zone, and I actually joined the session to understand how I might use that data to to talk through the cards in our stand-up and improve our flow. But my question is around once you integrate your, we use Trello. So once you integrate Trello with Nave and data starts flowing in, it takes a while for, for you to start seeing other insights, like, what's the throughput or the cycle time and all of those, right? So doesn't it take at least like a month or more for us to start seeing how useful Nave really could be?
Okay, great question. And first of all, what I want to say is that do not be afraid to see ugly pictures. Like, embrace ugly pictures. This is the best, this is my best state of business development when I see things that are messed up and all over the place, because this is the moment when you understand that there is a problem that has to be solved. You've identified the opportunity for improvement. Now you have that visibility, now you have that awareness that something has to change in order to get better, in order to switch to the nicer pictures. So I'm always happy to see messy stuff, because this means that you've already taken the next step to improve your process. So kudos to you for that. From then on, it's not a coincidence that I said do not start with tracking cycle time, throughput, and flow efficiency if you are just getting started. And the reason for that is you won't see results right away. Like, every time you change something, every time you introduce a new management practice or you change the way you manage the work, it will affect your performance and your metrics will start displaying the results of that change. I'm not really sure whether you guys have heard about the J-curve effect. What the J-curve effect states is that at the moment that you start a new initiative, your performance will first go down and before it goes up. Like, it takes the form of a J. So that's why the smaller the change, the better, because you only have small J's and you are going to see the results faster. So my first advice is start with something small, okay? Then from then on, just pay attention. What you can do to, in fact, to actually see the results right away is something that we introduced recently on the cycle time scatter plot. Our cycle time scatter plot is a chart that will enable you to track your cycle times and your lead times. There is an option, though, to switch between end date and start date in there. What's the difference? The difference is that once, let's say that you introduce WIP limits. Let's say that what you do is to limit the work in progress in your system. In order to see results, like the expected results of introducing WIP limits is to reduce your cycle times. So ideally, the work that you complete, like the dots on the scatter plot, need to go down. However, the work that's already been started before that change, they also need to be completed. And there will be a certain period when, as you're completing the older work, the dots keep going up, right? And you can end up in situations saying, okay, it's been like a few weeks since we started using WIP limits, and instead of having our cycle time down, it's going up. What's going on, right? So by switching between the end date and start date on the scatter plot, you will see when the work items have been started. Like, you're finishing work, but when were they started? Before the WIP limits change or after the WIP limits change? And when you switch to that start date, what you'll be able to observe is that everything after that change, the cycle time is going smoothly down, which is a result of the practice that you've introduced. So pay attention to your aging work. Don't be afraid of ugly pictures. This is a good thing, okay? Embrace it. Don't be stressed out, or don't stress out the teams as well. I communicate that this is a good thing and this is what you want. You want to review as many issues as possible to be able to prioritize the most impactful one and start working on it. Manage the age of the work, because this is what is going to cause the reduction of your cycle times and the increase in your throughput. Like, manage it effectively. And if you really want to see results right away, then I would highly recommend to start with tracking the cycle time or lead time and switch it to the start date, so you can actually observe since the beginning of your initiative, how are you doing? How are the results moving? And then take it from there. I hope this answers your question.
Very nice example, Sonya.
And by the way, if you haven't joined us followed me on LinkedIn, send me a note in there and I would love to look into your process. We can have a very short call, like 20 minutes or something, and we can go through your own data and talk about what I see and how I read the data, because like I would never make any conclusions without the context behind a certain picture. And I believe that you also may benefit from my perspective as a person who understands the metrics well. Maybe we can jump on a call and we can talk about different things that I'm seeing and you're seeing, and then we can come up with a short-term action plan that you can take to see results early. And that's for all of you guys. For anyone who is really interested, you have two options. You can either contact us so we can have a short call and we can quickly talk about your use case, or you can go and follow up with Silka. She will be happy to introduce you to the tool or answer any questions that you may have.
Or Daniel in Australia.
And Daniel as well.
Yeah, he cannot be here today. Unfortunately, he's sick. Yeah. Right. Are there any more questions? What a generous offer of your time and expertise, Sonya. Rob writes.
You know, people often tell me, Sonya, you are this business, you're running it, you're the first point of contact. And I'm like, you know, as a person who has to decide and who has to move that business in a certain direction, my sole responsibility is to understand what people need. Like, Nave is a customer-centric company. Our main goal is to understand what your problems are, and that's how we make decisions. We only prioritize work in our backlog based on the feedback that we receive from our customers. Everything that's like the way we improve Nave comes from you guys. So what I want to do, and as long as it's physically possible, I'm going to jump on a call with each and every person who wants to talk about this, who wants to say and share what are the problems that they want to resolve, so that we can find a way to help them resolve them. This is our main goal. So anyone who is interested to move on with this and continue the conversation, don't hesitate to contact me. I'll send you a link to my personal calendar so we can schedule a call and talk about that.
Great. Awesome. Last chance for questions.
I just want to say thank you. Very interesting and insightful, Sonya. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine.
Clemens is I've been working with him for 3 weeks now. I just started with him. So I'm really glad he's here. Yeah. So the recording will be available as usual on our Kanban New Zealand YouTube channel. I'll put that up tonight. And I'll also post it in the meetup event, so that those, I think many have actually counted on the recording today. Yeah, and we will share it there. If there are no more questions, I will at least stop the recording.